Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I was delighted to respond to Liam MacArthur's motion on renewable energy on the 28th of October. Then I focused on the fossil fuel levy, which has been part of the discussion today. Slightly disappointing that I think I'm the last open debate speaker with 50 minutes still to go, but I'm quite happy, Presiding Officer, to use as many of those as you will allow me. Today we've heard from George Adamovich. The North Sea has different conditions and potentials for the generation of renewable energy. Scotland is a fine example of how different offshore technologies, wind parks, wave and tidal technology, onshore potentials and various wind potentials can be combined to form a coherent approach. And of course, if we are going to move more and more of our energy use in the UK and in Scotland to be from renewable sources, implicitly that means the shift will be towards electricity. And therefore it is right and proper that we focus on the issue of transmission of that electricity from where it may be generated to where it may be required. There are, of course, a number of very low-level issues which will be discussed on another occasion. If we're going to have electric cars, clearly then we have to have local delivery of electricity for electric cars. But today's debate is much more about the transmission over the high voltage network, and high voltage, of course, to minimise the transmission losses so that we can deliver from one end of this island to another. Yes, I will.
MacArthur.
I'm grateful for Stewart Stevenson taking an intervention and help him through the 20 minutes that he has available. I wonder whether he might be able to touch in his remarks on the importance of storage in this debate. I mean, transmission is clearly an issue, but I think we're all probably guilty in this debate so far of rather glossing over the importance of storage, which may come in through transport and other means.
Mr. Stevenson.
I'm not sure the presiding officer responded to my suggestion of 20 minutes, but we
could suspend.
Hopefully by no tender part of my anatomy, presiding officer. It is actually quite interesting in response to what Liam MacArthur says, going back to the Red Point report. One of the clear things that's in there as one of the storage mechanisms is pumped storage. And of course, electricity is going to be a key part of producing hydrogen, which may turn out to be one of the fuels of choice for transport in future. And of course, there are a range of challenges in relation to how one stores hydrogen, because it being the smallest atom that there is, it sneaks through almost any metal and dissipates very, very rapidly. But, presiding officer, let me turn my attention to some issues that are a little more parochial for me. In Aberdeenshire, we have some of the highest transmission charges in Scotland at some £20 per kilowatt, and that is in contrast to £6.50 subsidies per kilowatt that is available in the south of England. That doesn't seem fair, but neither does it seem to serve the interests of any part of these islands. As George Adamovich's contribution to the debate today illustrated, Scotland has huge potential to be the renewables powerhouse of Europe. That benefits Europe, it benefits the UK, but fundamentally, of course, it creates economic opportunity for us here in Scotland. We've won the energy lottery again, and it's important we have the right policies and practices in place to capitalise on it. And of course, ourselves and the UK government share a 2050 target of 80% reduction in carbon emissions. Electricity and the effective generation and delivery of that is absolutely vital to that. And of course, it has been for us in Peterhead, with the huge proportion of the UK's gas supply coming ashore in my constituency adjacent to Peterhead, and a gas power station at Peterhead, been very disappointing that so great are the charges that the very real risk is that one of the units of generation could be closed because of the £29 million a year that they have to pay for access, while an identical power station in the London area would actually be paid £3 million to generate the power that is required. And of course, there is a broad consensus among energy producers, business groups, trade unions, that locational transmission charging is no longer the appropriate way. And I think we very much welcome, broadly, I've heard no dissenting voice, the fact that that issue is now being picked up through the UK government's consultation. It's a shame in some ways that we didn't get to this sooner. And with some 26,000 Scottish jobs in potential renewable energy, it is important that we make the kind of progress, move away from a model quite distinctly different from that which is used elsewhere in Europe. Now, the Scottish Government has continuously pressed for a change on the subject, and indeed, as a generator of some 12% of the UK's electricity, but forced to pay some 40% of the transmission costs, it's in everybody in these islands' interest that we do see significant change. Now, I have to say, one of my disappointments so far in my research that I haven't really found an answer to. I had thought that there were significant transmission losses when you pumped electricity over long distances, but even in the UK government's consultation document, it seems quite clear that the assumption is that what you put in is what you get out at the other end. So I'm obviously wrong on that, so that's something I've been corrected about by reading the UK government's document. What I would say is that it has been entirely appropriate to have a consensual approach to this, because I think the one thing that's fundamentally clear is that any policies in this area will outlast the term in office of any government in any part of these islands. Probably a series of governments will continue to be engaged in the policies that are set as a result of the current consultation. So it is important that we all contribute. It is important that today we express clearly and unambiguously what the needs of Scotland are and what the opportunities in Scotland are for providing for the energy needs of our neighbours elsewhere in these islands and further afield through interconnectors to other countries in Europe. Now, Presiding Officer, let me just address, and perhaps be slightly contentious, a matter that Stewart McMillan raised about performance of individual managers in banks, be they green banks or otherwise. I, of course, came into politics to purge myself of the taint of having worked for a bank for 30 years. Bonuses, perhaps we should now start to call performance-related pay, and perhaps there should be something that we structure that we take away from your pay if you don't deliver. If we look at it in that sense, then I think having performance-related pay is not a bad idea, provided it delivers to the public good, to the customers, and it's focused on the outcomes that an individual has delivered. But they should only be paid from profits, should there be any. I will draw my remarks to a conclusion, Presiding Officer, to the great relief I can see of many of my colleagues in the chamber here. I very much welcome the support that I heard from Liam MacArthur's reading of the amendment. That confirmed what I saw in his amendment. His party has a positive contribution in government at Westminster that it can deliver via the UK government's consultation to give us equitable access and a little way to offset some other areas of disappointment. I particularly welcomed hearing that Chris Hume yesterday recognised that this SNP government is led by one of Europe's leading energy economists. It should be no surprise that our First Minister, who has been long engaged in criticising the access regime and the effects that it has on Scotland and on energy supply in the UK as a whole. This existing process of charging must change. I am very happy to support the Minister's motion and to allow others to try and fill the time.